3 months after the humans returned, Earth's quarantine was finally lifted. Ships landed on the blue planet for the first time in 75 years. Families reunited. Some colony-born humans set foot on Earth for the first time, feeling the stronger gravity and breathing the rich air of their ancestral home. Human innovation spread quickly through the galaxy. The practical, creative solutions developed during exile solved problems other species had struggled with for centuries. In return, alien technologies flowed back to human worlds. The exchange benefited everyone. The Vexeri faced serious consequences. Trade sanctions limited their influence. Many worlds now bypassed them for resources. Their golden ships no longer commanded automatic respect. Representative Pan resigned in disgrace. "They will not forget this humiliation," warned Jin, now serving as security advisor to the Alliance. "The Vexeri think in terms of centuries, not years. They will seek revenge." "Let them try," replied Admiral Jie. "We faced worse odds and survived." But a new threat soon emerged that made the Vexeri seem insignificant. Alliance long-range sensors detected something approaching from beyond the galaxy's edge. First one signal, then 10, then hundreds. They respond to the energy signature of the reckoning. Explained Dr. Su after analyzing the data. "When we used the architect's technology, we sent a beacon into deep space. Something heard it. Probes arrived first, small, crystalline objects that scanned Alliance worlds, and then self-destructed when approached. Behind them came larger ships, unlike any design seen before. An emergency meeting of the Alliance brought all species together. This time, no one argued about who should lead or who deserved more power. Survival was all that mattered. The technology we found," said he, who had studied the architect's data for decades, "may have belonged to beings these newcomers fought long ago. By using it, we may have reopened an ancient war." The Alliance assembled its fleet at the galaxy's edge. 5,000 ships from dozens of worlds formed a defensive line. At the center flew the Reckoning, now upgraded with contributions from many species. Admiral G addressed the combined fleet from the command deck. Screens in every ship showed her face. Calm, determined, ready. "Many of you once feared humans," she said. "Your leaders exiled us, believing isolation would weaken us. Instead, it forced us to become stronger than they could imagine. We learned to adapt, to innovate, to never give up." She looked at her mixed crew, humans working side by side with beings who looked nothing like them. "Today we defend not just humanity, but all who wish to live freely in this galaxy. We stand together or we fall together." Throughout the fleet, crews prepared for battle. Species that had been enemies now worked as one. Engineers made final adjustments to shields. Pilots ran last checks on their systems. Medical teams stood ready. On the command deck of the Reckoning, Admiral J gave the order to advance. The massive black ship's engines flared to brilliant life, pushing it forward to meet the unknown threat. Behind it followed thousands of ships from dozens of worlds, no longer divided, no longer fearful of each other. The humans were no longer exiles returning for revenge. They had become something greater, guardians of a united galaxy. As the Reckoning led the fleet toward the approaching danger, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter on them all. The end. On Nebulon 4, people packed into shelters. They knew their world was about to change forever. Some prayed, some cried, some stared at the sky, watching their doom approach. Then a black shape appeared between planet and comet. The Reckoning positioned itself carefully, its engines glowing as it matched the comet's speed. The front section of the ship began to change, opening like a flower to reveal the conversion system. "All systems ready," reported Engineer Gill. "Conversion field at maximum." Captain Q gave the order. "Begin conversion sequence." This time, they used the technology in reverse. Instead of turning matter into energy, they transformed the comet's mass into pure light. As the massive object entered the conversion field, it began to glow. First, the outer layers of ice disappeared. turning into streams of colored light. Then the rocky core, harder to convert, began to break down. The people of Nebulon 4 watched in awe as their sky filled with dancing lights. The aurora spread across the planet, washing over cities and farms in waves of blue, green, and purple. Where death had been certain, now there was only beauty. The council station received video of the event. Even Representative Pon had no words as he watched the reckoning save millions of lives. But far away, at the very edge of charted space, something else was happening. Ancient monitoring systems, dormant for millions of years, activated. The energy signature from the reckoning's conversion field matched patterns programmed into their memory. Deep in the darkness between galaxies, something stirred. Sensors turned toward the source of the energy. Automatic systems began to wake up. Signals passed between scattered outposts, growing stronger. The humans had found the architect's technology. They had rebuilt it. They had used it. And they were not the only ones who remembered the architects. After saving Nebulon 4, the reckoning returned to the council station. Heroes' welcomes greeted the human crew at every docking point. Species that had never spoken to humans now offered gifts and thanks. The mood had shifted dramatically. On board the ship, the human leadership met to discuss their next steps. They gathered in a circular room with a table made from wood carried from forge. The walls showed stars moving past as if they were still flying. General Wu stood with her hands behind her back. Her uniform bore medals from battles against pirates and unknown aliens at the edges of human space. "We hold all the power now," she said firmly. "We could demand anything. The Council must pay for what they did to Earth. 75 years of isolation. Families separated forever. We deserve reparations." Several officers nodded in agreement. The anger of exile still burned in many hearts. Ambassador Han looked at each person before speaking. He had been born on a colony world and had only seen pictures of Earth. Yet he carried humanity's hopes on his shoulders. "And if we forced them to bow to us," he asked quietly, "how would we be different from those who exiled us? Would we become what they feared?" The room fell silent. "No," Han continued. "We negotiate from strength, but we choose cooperation. That is the true human way." The negotiations lasted 30 days. The council chambers hosted heated debates and private meetings. Ambassador Han revealed the truth about the Vexari deception. Representative Pon tried to deny it but could not argue with his father's own words. The Orion delegate, who had opposed Earth's exile from the beginning, proposed a solution. "Not a council anymore," she said, her blue skin shimmering under the chamber lights, "but an alliance, equal voices for all spacefaring species." The old council structure had given the 7 oldest races ultimate power. The new alliance would give each species 1 vote, regardless of age or technology. "Impossible," shouted Pon. "Some of these species barely understand space travel. They cannot have equal say with races that have explored the galaxy for 10,000 years. Yet a race you exiled as primitive now has technology beyond your understanding," replied Han. "Age does not equal wisdom." When the final vote came, even the Vexari could not stand against the tide of change. The new Galactic Alliance was born. The Reckoning, once feared as a warship, became the flagship of a new combined fleet. Admiral G, a brilliant tactician born on the colony world of New Dawn, was chosen as its commander. The crew came from 12 different species, humans working alongside beings they had only just met. "We learn from each other," Admiral G told the new crew on their first day. "Human determination, Orion philosophy, Trill connection to living systems, movie tactical thinking. Together, we are stronger than any single species could be." Dr. Su, the lead scientist from the Reckoning, stood before them. She was younger than Ambassador Han, with short black hair and steady hands that moved as she explained. "What you saw yesterday was not a weapon as you understand it," she said. "It's matter conversion technology. We don't destroy. We transform." She showed them simple diagrams on a screen. "Normal weapons break things apart. Our technology changes matter into energy, or energy into matter. The asteroid didn't explode. Its molecules were changed into pure energy, which the Reckoning then absorbed. The council members looked uncomfortable. The movie representative blinked all 6 of his eyes. "This is impossible technology," he said. "The energy requirements alone would be massive for your current systems." Sue finished for him, but not for ours. Over the next week, council investigators visited the Reckoning. They also traveled to the edge of human space, seeing for themselves the truth of Ambassador Hand's claims. They found thriving colonies on 17 planets. They saw cities built with technology that blended human creativity with ancient designs. They met humans who had never seen Earth, who had been born free among the stars. Meanwhile, on the council station, other discoveries were being made. An Orion data specialist named Rin had been given permission to check old records. What she found shocked her. "Ambassador Han," she said during a private meeting, "I found something you should see." She showed him encrypted messages from 75 years ago. They were from High Minister Tak of the Vexari to other council leaders. "These were never meant to be saved," Rin explained, "but our data systems keep everything." The messages revealed the truth. The Vexari had never feared human unpredictability. They had feared competition. Humans had discovered a new way to refine certain rare minerals. Minerals the Vexari controlled the market for. If humans joined the galactic community, Vexari profits would suffer. "They exiled us over money," Ambassador Han said quietly. "Resources are power in the council," Rin replied. "The Vexari have maintained control for thousands of years by controlling key resources." Ambassador Han shared this information with his team, but decided not to make it public yet. "We wait for the right moment," he told them. The Reckoning remained docked near the station. Every day, ships would fly past it, crews staring at its strange black hull. Security Director Ta had to create a special flight path to keep traffic moving. In their quarters on the station, the human delegation received unexpected visitors. First came representatives from the jury, a species with 4 legs and sensitive antennae who had been denied full council membership for centuries. "We admire what you've accomplished," their leader told Han. "The older races keep the rest of us dependent on them." Then came the lackey, who could breathe both air and water. Then the Voss, with their crystalline bodies. All species pushed to the edges of council politics. "They see us as hope," Ambassador Han told his staff during their evening meeting. "Not just our technology, but our willingness to challenge the old order." His assistant, Bin, looked worried. "The Vexari won't give up power easily. They've ruled for 10,000 years." "No empire lasts forever," Han replied. The diplomatic situation grew more tense each day. The council demanded that humans share their technology. The humans refused unless the council agreed to reforms. The Vexari threatened to rebuild their fleet with new weapons specifically designed against the Reckoning. Then everything changed. An emergency signal reached the station from Nebulon 4, an agricultural world that supplied food to many council planets. A rogue comet, knocked out of its orbit by a solar flare, was heading directly for the planet. "Impact in 47 hours, reported the emergency coordinator. "Planet-wide devastation likely." The council fleet commander looked grim. "Our closest ships are 4 days away. We can't reach them in time." All eyes turned to the humans. Ambassador Han stood up. "The Reckoning can be there in 6 hours," he said. Representative Pawn of the Vexari scoffed. "And why would you help? This is not your concern." "Because we're not who you think we are," Han replied simply. The Reckoning departed immediately. On board, Captain Q plotted the fastest course to Nebulon 4. "This is our chance to show them the truth," he told his crew. "That we come as friends, not conquerors." The ship arrived with 18 hours to spare. The comet was massive, nearly 10 kilometers across, mostly ice with a rocky core. It moved at tremendous speed toward the green planet below. "This is Ambassador Han of the Human Confederation," We request formal audience with the Galactic Council. The command deck fell silent. Humans, the quarantine species from the backwater planet. Impossible. Within an hour, the council chamber had filled with representatives from 200 worlds. Most had to check their databases to even remember what humans looked like. The oldest members, those who had been present for the quarantine vote, looked pale with shock. Security Director Taj stood by the main doors as a small shuttle docked with the station. 5 humans emerged. They wore simple black uniforms with a symbol Todd didn't recognize, a phoenix rising from flames, surrounded by stars. Ambassador Han walked at the front. He was tall, with gray at his temples and calm eyes that missed nothing. His 4 companions were younger, 2 men and 2 women, all moving with the easy confidence of people who knew their own strength. When they entered the council chamber, whispers spread like ripples in water. Many had never seen a human in person before. The Vexari representative, Pan, son of the same High Minister Tak who had pushed for Earth's quarantine, stood up from his seat at the high table. His golden skin had darkened with age, but his 4 arms still moved with precise, controlled anger. "This is an outrage," he shouted. "Humanity was quarantined for the safety of all spacefaring species. Your presence here violates council law. And that warship," he pointed a long finger toward the viewing screen showing the reckoning, "proves our concerns were completely justified." Ambassador Han smiled. It was not a warm smile. 75 years ago, your father declared us too dangerous to join the galactic community, he said. His voice was soft, but carried to every corner of the room. You abandoned us to die alone, thinking we would never survive without your guidance. But we did more than survive, Representative Pan. We thrived. The Orion delegate, one of the blue-skinned philosophers who had voted against Earth's quarantine, leaned forward. "How many of you escaped?" she asked. 10,000, initially, Han replied. "Now we number over 20 million across 17 worlds in what you call the forbidden sectors." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The forbidden sectors were avoided by council ships because of old stories about strange energy readings and ships that disappeared. "And that ship?" asked the Trill representative, his plant-like body swaying with agitation. "No known species has such technology." "The reckoning was built using knowledge we found," said Han. "Knowledge some of you have deliberately kept separate and controlled for your own benefit." He looked directly at the Vexari table. Pan slammed all 4 of his hands on the table. "This aggressive display confirms everything my father warned about. You build a warship as your first act upon return. You threaten this council. We built a ship to protect ourselves," countered Han, "after being abandoned by those who should have welcomed us. It is clearly a weapon of war," Han shouted. "What else could such a monstrosity be for?" Ambassador Han's smile faded. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order." He touched a small device on his wrist. On the main viewing screen, the reckoning began to rotate slowly, revealing a section of its hull that started to glow with soft blue light. Energy gathered, focused, and then nothing seemed to happen. No visible beam appeared. No explosion rocked the station, but on a secondary screen showing the outer reaches of the system, a medium-sized asteroid monitoring station simply vanished. One moment it existed, the next it was gone, not even dust remaining. The council chamber fell completely silent. Even Pan stood frozen, all 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. That, said Han into the silence, was at 5% power, targeting an unmanned station we confirmed was empty. The technology allows for matter conversion, not destruction. We can just as easily create as remove. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species who had dismissed humanity as primitive just hours before. "We don't come seeking revenge," he continued. "We come offering partnership, but as equals, not as subjects. The Human Confederation exists, whether you choose to recognize it or not. We've survived your exile. We've mastered technologies you feared. And now we're ready to take our place in this galaxy." The chamber remained silent, 200 species trying to comprehend how completely they had underestimated the determination of a species they had tried to forget. The day after the demonstration, the council called an emergency meeting. They chose a smaller room this time, with just 30 representatives from the most powerful worlds. The humans sat on one side, the council members on the other. The tension in the room felt thick enough to touch. "It's a shipyard," said he, now head of research. She had studied the alien writing for months. It belonged to a species called the Architects. They died out long before any current council race reached the stars. The discovery changed everything. The Architects had technologies far beyond what the Exiled humans had seen. More importantly, they had combined technologies in ways the council races avoided. The Architects didn't separate knowledge into safe categories, explained he to the colony leadership. They saw technology as one connected system, and they left us everything: their research, their designs, their understanding. Governor Da, now an old man with a stooped back, looked at the holograms showing the ancient designs. "Can we build this?" Engineer Yoon, her hands now gnarled with age, but still steady, nodded. "Yes, and we should. It's our chance to return." Construction began on a ship unlike any in the galaxy. They called it the Reckoning. Using the Architects' designs and human innovation, they built it in the ancient underground facility. Thousands worked on different systems. The hull used metals that absorbed energy instead of reflecting it. The engines bent space in ways that made distance meaningless. For 15 years they worked. Governor Dai did not live to see it completed. He died in his sleep, still dreaming of Earth. Engineer Yoon lived longer, guiding the project until her final days. "It's beautiful," she whispered, looking at the nearly finished ship. Then she too passed away, her life's work almost complete. Their children and grandchildren finished what they started. The Reckoning was massive, elegant, and powerful beyond anything the council races had built. Its black hull seemed to swallow light. Its weapons could destroy a moon. Its shields could withstand a star's flare. As the ship neared completion, debate spread through the human colonies about its purpose. Councilor Sun, leader of the diplomatic faction, addressed the Colonial Assembly. "We should return to council space in peace," he argued. "Show them we survived, that we flourished. Offer friendship and knowledge." General Wu stood up, her uniform decorated with medals from border skirmishes with unknown aliens. "They didn't offer us friendship," she countered. "They feared us when we were weak. Now they will respect us because we are strong. We return with power, or we don't return at all." The assembly hall erupted in arguments. The children of exile had never forgotten the stories of Earth's quarantine. Some wanted revenge. Others wanted reconciliation. But all agreed on one thing. After 75 years, it was time for humanity to return to the galactic stage. And when they did, the Council would never forget the name of their ship, the Reckoning. The central council station hung like a giant silver wheel against the darkness of space. For over 1,000 years, it had been the heart of galactic politics. Hundreds of different alien species worked and lived there. Most had forgotten about the small blue planet called Earth, quarantined 75 years ago. It was a normal day on the station. Ships came and went through carefully scheduled jump points. Security Director Tai sat at his monitoring station, sipping a warm drink. He had worked security for 30 years and knew every protocol by heart. Then every alarm on the station began to scream at once. "What's happening?" Ta shouted, jumping to his feet. His assistant's 6-fingered hands flew across the control panel. "Something just appeared," the assistant said. 10 kilometers from docking ring 3. Ta looked at the main screen and froze. A massive black ship had materialized next to the station. Not through the jump gate. Not after a normal light-speed approach. It had simply appeared. "Impossible," Ta whispered, staring at the readings. "Nothing that size can jump so precisely. It would tear itself apart." The mysterious vessel was enormous. It dwarfed the Council's defensive fleet ships, which were already moving to surround it. The black hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When they tried to scan it, the beams disappeared into the surface, returning no data. "It's not in our ship registry," said Ta's assistant. "No known configuration." On the command deck of the station, Fleet Admiral Ryu barked orders. "All defensive ships to position. Weapons ready, but do not fire without my command." The Vexeri cruisers, with their distinctive golden hulls, moved closest to the intruder. They activated their weapon systems, energy building in their forward cannons. But the black ship simply remained. When the Vexeri fired warning shots, the energy bolts disappeared into the hull without effect. It was like shooting into a black hole. Then a transmission came through on all frequencies. The voice was calm, human, and spoke perfect council standard language. Only when they were safely beyond detection did the colony ships activate their faster-than-light drives. The stars stretched and blurred around them as they jumped into the unknown. Back at the council, High Minister Tak received reports of unusual energy readings near Earth's moon. "Investigate," he ordered. "It appears some ships may have escaped the blockade," said his assistant. Tak waved a dismissive hand. "A handful of humans in outdated ships. They will find no allies out there. They will run out of supplies or turn on each other. Humans cannot work together for long." He turned back to the council matters. "They are no longer our concern. In time, Earth will be forgotten. A minor footnote in our long history." But in the darkness between the stars, the colony ships flew on. Captain Da and Engineer Yoon stood together, looking at the view screen showing the endless possibilities ahead. "They think we're finished," said Da. "They've made a mistake," replied Yoon. "They've made us stronger by forcing us to leave everything behind." The ships accelerated, heading toward distant stars where humanity would forge a new destiny, one that would someday shock the galaxy. The colony ships drifted for 3 years before finding a suitable planet. It orbited a small red star that glowed like a dying ember in the black sky. The planet didn't rotate like Earth. One side always faced the star, burning hot enough to melt metal. The other side remained in endless night, covered in ice kilometers thick. Between these extremes stretched a narrow band of twilight where life was possible. Captain Da stood on a rocky hill, looking at the harsh landscape. Wind whipped his hair as he studied the red-tinged sky. Behind him, the colony ships rested on the dusty ground, their metal hulls already showing signs of the planet's harsh environment. "Not exactly paradise," said Engineer Yoon, climbing up beside him. She carried a device that measured mineral content in the soil. Day smiled despite his exhaustion. "But it's ours. And look at these readings." He pointed to her scanner. "More rare metals than all of Earth's mines combined. The first year nearly broke them. 3,000 colonists died from an unexpected radiation burst. Food grown in the alien soil made people sick. The constant dim light affected everyone's mood. Some wanted to leave, to keep searching. There is nowhere else," Dad told them at a colony meeting. His voice was firm but kind. "We have enough fuel for one more jump, with no guarantee of finding anything better. This is our home now. We will adapt." They named the planet Forge. Like blacksmiths of old Earth, they would hammer themselves into something new and strong through fire and pressure. They built the first permanent settlement underground, safe from radiation. Engineer Yoon designed special lights that mimicked Earth's sun. Doctors created treatments for the strange illnesses caused by local microbes. Children were born who never knew Earth. They called themselves Forge-born. 10 years passed. The colony grew. They mined the rich veins of rare metals and built factories. 20 years passed. Dae and Yoon married, though both had little time for family life. Their work consumed them. Yoon's hair turned gray early, but her mind remained sharp. She led teams that studied the alien technology they had brought from Earth. "The council races keep their technologies separate," she explained to a group of young engineers. "The Vexari drive systems never mix with Orion power sources. The Trill shield designs never combine with movie weapons. They follow rules thousands of years old. "But why?" asked a young woman named He, daughter of original colonists. "Fear," said Yoon. "Fear of what might happen if technologies evolve too quickly. The same fear that made them exile us." By their 30th year on Forge, they had built ships, small ones at first, to explore their star system. They found moons rich in water ice, asteroids full of precious metals. With each discovery, they grew stronger. 40 years after landing, they jumped to nearby stars. They found 2 more habitable planets. New colonies formed. Trade routes connected them. The children of Forge carried humanity outward, always careful to avoid Council space. In the 58th year of exile, everything changed. A mining team dug deep into Forge's crust, following a strange reading on their sensors. The team leader, Jin, was the grandson of an original colonist. He had never seen Earth, knew it only from stories. "We thought it was another metal deposit," Jin later told the Colony Council. "But we broke through into an open space. It wasn't natural." What they found was beyond imagination. Vast chambers stretching for kilometers underground. Ancient machines covered in dust. Computers that still functioned after unknown millennia. The stars shone brightly in the viewing dome of the Galactic Council station. For thousands of years, many alien races had met here to talk about trade, borders, and laws. 75 years ago, humans had sent their first faster-than-light ship beyond their solar system. They had been so happy to find other intelligent life. That happiness did not last long. The huge council chamber could hold beings from over 200 worlds. Some floated in special tanks. Others needed masks to breathe. The 7 oldest races sat at the high table, looking down at everyone else. The Vexari, tall beings with golden skin and 4 arms, led the council. They had been in space for over 10,000 years. High Minister Tak of the Vexari stood up, his long robes flowing around him. "We have studied the humans for 10 years now," he said. His voice was smooth but cold. "They worry us greatly." The room buzzed with quiet talk. Humans had been allowed to send observers but not speak. Admiral Sung, Earth's military representative, stood straight in his blue uniform. His gray hair showed his 60 years of life. Next to him, Dr. Mai adjusted her glasses and took notes. "Humans learn too fast," continued Tak. "In just 300 years, they went from simple machines to space travel. No other race has done this." He showed images of Earth's history. Wooden ships became metal ones. Horses gave way to cars. Airplanes became rockets. The images flashed faster and faster. "They fight wars constantly," Tak said. "They split the atom and made terrible weapons before they even left their planet. What will they do in 100 years? 200. They cannot be trusted with galactic technology." Admiral Sung wanted to argue, but rules forbid it. He looked at the other council races. The Trill, who looked like walking plants, seemed worried. The Movie, with their 6 eyes, nodded along. Only the Orions, an old race of blue-skinned philosophers, looked doubtful. "We suggest," Tak said, his voice getting louder, "that Earth be placed under quarantine. No trade, no travel, no communication with other worlds. For the safety of all." Dr. May grabbed Admiral Sung's arm. "They can't do this," she whispered. "We've done nothing wrong." But the vote came quickly. The oldest races voted first. Only the Orions voted against the quarantine. The middle races followed the leaders. By the end, the decision was made. Earth would be cut off from the galaxy. "They fear us," Dr. Mai said as they watched from the observation deck. "Not for what we are, but what we might become." Admiral Sung's face showed no emotion, but his hands formed tight fists. "This isn't about safety. It's about control." Back on Earth, the news hit hard. Riots broke out in major cities. Religious leaders claimed it was punishment from the gods. Politicians blamed each other. But in secret, a plan was already forming. President Kwan called an emergency meeting with his top military and science advisors. "We won't accept this prison sentence," he said. We need options. Engineer Yoon, the brilliant designer of Earth's first faster-than-light drive, spoke up. The colony ships for Mars can be modified for deep space. We could send people beyond Council space. Where would they go? Asked General Park. We don't know what's out there. Captain Da, the youngest person in the room, pulled up star charts. There are unexplored regions here and here, he said, pointing. The Council avoids them because of old superstitions. We could find a new home. The plan took shape quickly and secretly. 10 colony ships, each able to carry 1,000 people, were prepared. Engineers worked day and night to upgrade them. Food, supplies, and technology were loaded. Who would go? President Kwan asked. This is a one-way trip. I will, said Captain Da. My crew will follow. And I will go too, added Engineer Yoon. Her eyes met Da's, and something passed between them. The Council ships arrived 3 weeks later. Huge vessels took position around Earth. Their message was simple. No ship could leave Earth's solar system. Any attempt would be met with force. But humans are clever. As the main fleet of Council ships arranged themselves around the planet, the colony ships were hidden on the far side of the moon. They powered down all systems and waited. On the day of the escape, Earth's military created a distraction. They launched old rockets and satellites, setting off alarms across the Council blockade. As the alien ships rushed to investigate, the colony ships slipped away, using minimal power. Captain Da stood on the bridge of the lead ship, named Hope. Engineer Yoon worked frantically at her station, making sure the engines stayed quiet. 10,000 people held their breath as the ships passed the edge of the solar system. Council ships are returning to formation, reported the sensor officer. They haven't seen us.